I am your son. I have always been your son.
You're no son of mine.
Most people treat Tywin Lannister's death as the moment everything collapsed. The Great Lion finally brought down. But here is the thing. Tywin Lannister did not lose in that tower the night Tyrion pulled the trigger. He lost in a conversation that happened years earlier, in his own chambers, at his own desk, and he walked away from it thinking he had won. How does the most strategically brilliant mind in the history of Westeros engineer his own destruction without ever realizing he is doing it? Why did the man who could read every enemy across 5 kingdoms completely fail to read the one person sitting across the table from him? And what is the single detail hidden in plain sight across multiple seasons that proves Tywin Lannister had already lost long before Tyrion ever picked up that crossbow? Before we examine the move that doomed Tywin, we need to freeze the board exactly as it looked that day, because this is the last moment, when he still believes he's completely winning. The War of the 5 Kings is effectively over. His grandson sits on the Iron Throne. His enemies have been defeated. His family controls every major institution in Westeros. If this were a chess engine, it would call this overwhelmingly winning. But engines evaluate pieces, not people. And that's exactly where Tywin begins making the wrong calculation. Tyrion has just been made acting Hand of the King. He has moved Shae, his lover, into the Tower of the Hand to keep her safe. Tywin finds out, and he summons Tyrion. Now on the surface, this looks like a father laying down the law to an embarrassing son. Tywin is composed, cold, in complete control. He tells Tyrion to remove Shae from King's Landing. He tells him she is beneath the Lannister name. He tells him what a son of his is expected to do. And then he says the line.
And one more thing. The next whore I cut in your bed, I'll hang.
Most people hear that line and see Tywin asserting dominance, a powerful father putting a wayward son in his place. But watch Tyrion's face in the moment after. Watch what actually happens behind those eyes. This is not the face of someone who was put in his place. This is the face of someone who just crossed a line in his own mind that he will never cross back over. Tywin thought he was ending the conversation. He was starting a countdown. To understand why this particular threat crossed the line that could never be uncrossed, what Tyrion actually wanted from Tywin needs to be understood. Not Casterly Rock, not a title, not even respect in the formal sense. Tyrion wanted one thing from his father that Tywin was constitutionally incapable of giving: to be seen as a person rather than a problem. Tyrion organized the defense of King's Landing when Stannis Baratheon came with the largest fleet Westeros had seen in a generation. He rode out himself. He bled in the mud. He saved the city. And when Tywin arrived to take the credit, Tyrion was hidden in a back room with a slashed face, being told he would receive no reward. He had a legal claim to Casterly Rock. Jaime cannot inherit. He is a Kingsguard. Tyrion is the lawful heir by every rule Tywin himself claims to operate by. And Tywin told him he would rather watch the family seat sink into the ocean than let Tyrion have it. A person can absorb decades of rejection from a parent. People do it all the time. They find ways to compartmentalize it, to survive it, to keep showing up anyway. But the moment the parent reaches past the person and threatens something the person loves, something completely innocent, something that had nothing to do with any of it, the calculation changes permanently. Shae was not a political liability to Tyrion. She was the one person in his life who had chosen to be with him without being ordered to, without being paid to, without a political reason. And Tywin threatened to hang her. Here is the thing about Tywin Lannister that the show keeps showing us without ever saying out loud. He was a genius at macro-level power. He understood armies and alliances and the economics of ruling better than almost anyone alive. But he was catastrophically blind to the psychology of the individuals closest to him. Psychologists call this projection. Tywin projected his own operating system onto everyone around him. He assumed that everyone, including Tyrion, was primarily motivated by power and legacy, by what they stood to gain or lose politically. So when he threatened Shae, he thought he was speaking Tyrion's language. He thought he was making a rational argument about political liability. He did not understand that Tyrion's primary motivation in that moment was not political at all. It was emotional. And threatening the emotional anchor of a person who already feels unloved does not produce compliance. It produces a decision. Everything Tywin set in motion with that threat finds its fullest expression in the trial. On the surface, this looks like Tywin's masterwork. He has arranged everything perfectly. He is about to send Tyrion to the wall, removing the embarrassment cleanly, maintaining the family name, keeping the peace with the Tyrells. A perfectly managed crisis.
I wish I was the monster you think I am. I wish I had enough poison for the whole pack of you. I would gladly give my life to watch you all swallow it.
Watch Tywin in this moment, not Tyrion, Tywin, because something happens to his face in the second after Tyrion says those words that tells you everything about who actually holds the power in this room. Tywin flinches. A man who is truly in control does not flinch at the thing he controls. Tywin flinches because somewhere beneath the composure, he knows that Tyrion is telling the truth. And he knows that the person whose truth this is the same person he threatened into this position, with a line about a woman who had nothing to do with any of it. And then the moment that makes the Shae threat the most consequential line Tywin ever spoke arrives. Shae walks into that trial. Now, whether Tywin directly arranged Shae's testimony or simply created the conditions that made it inevitable is debated by book readers and show watchers alike. But what is not debatable is this. The moment Tywin threatened Shae in that chamber, he set in motion a chain of events that put her in that courtroom. He threatened her. Tyrion had to send her away. And a woman sent away from the only person she felt connected to is a woman who eventually becomes available to the enemies of that person. Tywin Lannister created the witness who condemned his own son. The threat he made to control the situation produced the exact outcome that made control impossible. And he is watching it happen from the judge's seat. Not understanding that the trial he arranged so perfectly is running on a mechanism he built with his own hands years earlier. Everything in this video has been building to this moment, because the final conversation between Tyrion and Tywin is not the cause of the ending. It is the proof that the ending was already written.
You're no son of mine.
I am your son. I have always been your son.
A man who understood power better than almost anyone alive looked down the barrel of everything he had spent 30 years building toward this moment, and said the one thing that confirmed he had never understood a single thing about the person holding the trigger. You are no son of mine. Tywin had been saying that his whole life, not always in words, in actions, in dismissals, in threats about women Tyrion loved, in trials arranged to send him to the wall. The crossbow was not an act of impulse. It was the conclusion of a decades-long argument that Tywin never knew he was losing. Everything Tywin spent his life protecting collapsed within 2 seasons of his death. Not because he was unlucky, not because his enemies were too strong, because the only person capable of holding it together was the person he drove away with a threat about a woman on a random afternoon in his own chambers. Tyrion was the one child who had Tywin's actual abilities, the political intelligence, the ability to read rooms and manage people, the strategic clarity under pressure, and Tywin spent 30 years making sure that person would never be allowed to use those abilities for the family name. Step outside the show for a moment, because what Tywin demonstrates is one of the oldest failure modes in the history of leadership. The leaders who care most about legacy are often the ones who destroy it. Not because they are not intelligent, because their intelligence is entirely directed outward, at enemies, at alliances, at the board, and never at the people sitting across the table from them, who are quietly deciding what they are willing to do and what they are not. Tywin Lannister could outthink every political operator in Westeros. He could plan 5 moves ahead in any game of power, but he could not look at his own son and see a person instead of a problem. And that is the detail hiding in plain sight across every season. Not the crossbow, not the trial, not even Shae. The detail is that Tywin Lannister, the man who understood everything about power, never once understood the one person in his life who was most like him. And that person understood him completely. The first time we see Tyrion and Tywin together, Tyrion is looking up. The last time we see them together, Tyrion is looking down. That reversal did not happen the night Tyrion picked up the crossbow. It happened the afternoon Tywin made a threat about a woman and watched his son walk out of the room having made a decision he would never unmake. Tywin Lannister died on a toilet, shot by the son he spent 30 years dismissing, in a tower named for the position he defined himself by, with the word that mattered most to him, son, being the last word he ever used as a weapon. He did not lose when Tyrion pulled the trigger. He lost when he forgot that the people closest to us are not pieces. They are players, and players who are treated like pieces eventually start moving on their own. So here is the question. Was Tywin Lannister a great man who made one fatal mistake? Or was the fatal mistake the thing that revealed he was never as great as he believed? Drop the answer in the comments. And if this breakdown changed how Tywin Lannister looks across the whole series, there is a full video on the moment Tywin sat across from Olenna Tyrell and lost a negotiation for the first time in his life. Right here. Do not miss it.